We don't know when, but at least for the near term future, he's constantly renewing himself.
It reminds me of like a Roosevelt situation where they were trying to hide the polio as much as they could until basically they couldn't anymore.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
it
good
is.
now.
Maybe there's.
And just to
Yeah.
underline what you're saying, Morgan, everyone's saying that data was gathered blind, the Q. We didn't
Yes.
do the election, although the election's coming up, of course, but we're doing quite a few different projects all the time, and not all to do with the election. And
Yeah.
data's incredibly focused.
One thing I kind of add too that just kind of striking me now, he did get COVID, if you remember correctly, and they did jack him full of a bunch of different things. Maybe in spring of 20. I can't remember exactly when that happened, but they did give him a lot of stuff. And they did say he did have a difficult time at the very beginning before he got to the hospital. So that might be what it's referencing. It may not be a death, because that's the one thing I think that some of the viewers might kind of come away with. There is some level of death associated with this person. Now, are we confident in saying that this person's going to die, before he gets in the office, while he's in office, after? Like, it doesn't say. And anybody who does or knows much about remote viewing knows that time is a very difficult thing to do. And in fact, I would say it's like 80, 90% not likely for anyone to get the timing correct. It might be more for a genuine psychic, like say Joe McMoneagle, like he might be able to pull something out like that. But I guess what I'm saying is like, take heed. We're not saying he's going to die, but let's be honest, the guy's got a lot of enemies and a lot of powerful enemies at that. And it would not surprise me one bit for them to get at him somehow.
If you really had to force my hand, I might lean towards saying I his full term plays out, and I think that the death stuff is after the fact, or at least towards the end of his term.
Yeah, what I took away from this whole thing was that, you know, he's going to be the next president. There is some death and or sickness hanging around his whole situation, but there's also uh, continual, I guess, renewal of spirit and energy. Like somebody, mentioned the idea of a battery backup. Like he just keeps being renewed, you know, uh, presumably to do the job that he's supposed to do. So, in spite
Yeah,
of
actually,
this,
two of the viewers specifically mentioned that just by participating in this process energizes them.
yeah, right, yeah, he draws energy from it. So, in spite of the death and or sickness, we don't know when, but at least for the near term future, he's constantly renewing himself, his energy.
He's like 80 or something like that, isn't he?
Yeah,
Some of that general neighborhood.
81,
It
something.
reminds me of like a Roosevelt situation where they were trying to hide the polio as much as they could until basically they couldn't anymore.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
it
good
is.
now.
Maybe there's something there. That's one thing
He
that,
could have he could have some sort of genetic defect that, from age and stress and pollution and everything else going on, could have activated that. And he knows he's got a timeline here, and just get to the main goal, get this main goal accomplished, get over this high bar, and then
I'm
rest
done.
after that.
Yep, I'm done. Yep.
That
And
maybe
again,
something like that.
it could be just referencing the COVID, but then, some of the more recent data that started to come out or has been coming out, mostly out of Europe too, that I've kind of noticed. It doesn't really seem to come from the United States. I think this might actually come from an insurance company or an insurance survey of some sort. But basically, the idea is something along the lines of depending on how many COVID vaccines you had received, determines the X number of years that you've shortened your life or your life expectancy. That could be what it's referencing. That's one thing about remote viewing. We generally get 80 to 90% actionable data. You're going to get some noise in there just by dint of the process and being conscious and working with unconscious at the same time. So you're going to get some things that is just noise. They're just mistakes. So like we're not going to be 100% accurate on everything all the time. And anybody says so, like, man, you should be out there making money doing this if that's the case, because there's really not much money to be had in doing something like this.
This was a sketch, and of course, I had no idea who it was. It's a freaky looking picture, kind of. But the main thing about the sketch was the wrinkles. The skin has this like aged, deflated look. If you look at Trump now, it really stands out. You can really see it in the picture. But at the time back then, I said, this was some sort of polymorphic, polyphonic, like almost like shape shifting person. The results could be saying that this is shifting between different possibilities. The polyphonic is, sounds like anything. Polymorphic is any shape, many different shapes. Uh, but also, this idea came through that somebody wants to extinguish this person, but they have a right to life and they're stubborn. They don't want that to happen. They're not going to let that happen. But somebody does want to extinguish them. And as far as who wants to extinguish them, well, the next data point that came in was a very evil name. And I just mentioned that because more than once in our projects, we've encountered some specific evil names, I guess. So, take that for what it's worth. I don't know. But that stuff has come through before. And this may have been one of the only times I think it's ever come through in one of my sessions. So, anyway, that's it. But this was, like I said, this was done in January of 2015, before we had any idea who it might be. And so that was the main ideas that came through for me on this one, was that somebody wants to kill him.
And the cue was what, Jeff?
Was United States / next president.
Wow.
And so that was the first one we did. And then after that, maybe Morgan and Dan can remember better than I can.
Yeah, Dan, do you want to go ahead and describe your 2016 session?
Mostly describing a shaggy, unkempt, gregarious person placating the masses or placating a population of people. There was some background information about maybe a hidden bad business dealing where he had to pay off some people to be quiet, essentially. It was funny because I was catching some things in which, I'm describing this person that's like, he's hungry. It's like he's not had breakfast. He was just really trying to get this thing going. There's a few things about problematic grants of money. And I think at the time it was just, this was way before the election. So he wasn't even really a forefront. So it was really hard to decipher which one it was until, I don't know, maybe a month or two after we had run the session work, when it was just him and I believe it's Hillary at the time.
And this was the project that right after that is when we put the article up about the prediction about
Yep.
being Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to go back to the State of the Reality page on the Wayback Machine and archive.org, I think it is.
Yeah.
And it's still there if anybody, wants to go and read it themselves. I don't think we reissued that article, but it is out there. You can find it. It would have been the stateofreality.com, and the time would have been somewhere around June of 2015.
2016. 2016.
Oh, sorry, you're right. 2016. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think we put the article up before he had clinched the nominee.
There was another viewer session who I remember we asked him to summarize his work, and he basically said, I think this is a direct quote. He said, "There's a man standing in front of his shiny golden sign." And then I ran a session too, and mine actually, under the AOL column, I actually named Donald Trump in the session. It basically just kind of described him in this scenario where he was kind of standing in front of a mirror, kind of leaning over and just contemplating whether he wanted to go forward with this or not. And really, other than that, there was quite a lot of allusion to danger and that was really why he was hesitant to do it, because it was he was putting himself at risk. And according to my session at that time, he knew that, and that was kind of his big hang up in deciding whether to go for it or not. But
I remember you
um
said he was like standing in front of the mirror, like looking at himself, kind of, trying to, couldn't decide exactly how to hold his arms or something like that. And, but yeah, he was particularly worried about assassination attempt, basically that type of danger. But he felt it was his destiny, and he loathed destiny, but understood that it was time to do it.
We all have 9 to 5 jobs, which makes difficult in getting articles and social media posts out there. Although these days with X.com and Instagram, it is much easier to do those sorts of things. But writing actual articles, doing these kind of podcasts, fortunate at this point that Jared's put one together and it gives us an opportunity to talk about this. We definitely would probably look to do something similar, if not the same podcast in the future. But any other information that we might have out, we do put it at intuitiveunderground.com. And if you would like to come by and take a look, it's there, it's up, it's live. We've got several articles there now. Unfortunately, life takes over sometimes, and we're not able to put together articles quickly, or at least relevantly important articles quickly and get them out in a timely fashion. Life does happen and things cost money. But we are still around. We are here. And if you want to check us out, please have a look. I'm sure we'll have a link somewhere in the description of this video. And outside of that, we appreciate you listening.
You guys take students?
No,
I do.
I'm not
Yeah,
at this time, but
If I can see, progress or somebody who's already started, I'm not really looking to teach or to educate from the ground up. There are plenty of at-home courses. I would recommend starting those and bootstrapping that way to get a kind of a good sense of what the process is like. It takes quite some time, 6 months to a year, to kind of perfect the methodology of, not really perfect the methodology, but perfect the progress, and starting from stage 1 through stage 6 or 7. Um, I would recommend to anybody out there who is looking to learn and starts bootstrapping, at some point, I would highly recommend seeking a qualified professional to teach you how to deploy ideograms in stage 1. For me, it is quite possibly the most important part of that session, or any session. Any other data that comes after that, if you're doing it incorrectly, is generally garbage. You might waste your time doing that. But if somebody's more developed and is looking for some, yeah, I am interested. But really, it's very selective.
they can contact the website. There's contact
True.
information
Right.
on the Intuitive Underground website for students seeking advanced training.
yeah, and I also actually have a dedicated training website. It's not directly affiliated with Intuitive Underground. It's my own thing, but it's remoteviewingtraining.com.
For me, looking across the board, it's Trump. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. I know a lot of people do. Me personally, I try to be apolitical as much as possible. It seems to me very likely that it's going to be him. My thoughts wander towards, does he make it into office? Does he stay a whole term? Does he hide an illness? I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of things, again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of things going on out there that could really get out of control. Ukraine, you can talk about the Middle East and what's going on there with Israel, um, with Lebanon, um, Hamas, and everything else. Not to mention the division we have here in the United States, how everything's become pretty much polarized. There's very little in the middle, and there's very few people talking or listening, for that matter. Um, I hope that it turns out for the best, but as we sit right now, it just seems like it's him.
Yeah, I would also say yeah, the data shows it's going to be Trump, and all the same stuff Dan said. Will he make it into office, etc. There also seems to be some chaos and destruction, or whatever word you want to use, associated with this whole thing. Not not attributable to Trump. He's not the fault of it. It's just there. And then this idea of male and female reproductive rights, that seems to be a big issue that may refer to the abortion debate, uh, trans rights, that kind of thing. But I get the sense from the data that is going to be a major issue going forward. I don't know, maybe some kind of a paradigm shift there. Maybe the idea of marriage, with the concept of marriage is going to be, I don't know, have to be fleshed out or something. Maybe the reasons for marriage will be different. The reasons for a man and a woman getting together from here on out are going to be different than they were. And other than that, I don't know what to say about it. But it comes through in the data a lot. That also came through in the sessions that were done about COVID-19, which we won't get into here. But there's reproductive issues, came up in all that session work. So, watch that from here on. Morgan.
No, I really don't have anything to add. As far as conclusions go, well, as I kind of mentioned, the question I set out to answer as a project manager was who's going to win the upcoming election. The answer, based on the data, as the viewers perceived it, is Trump. So I don't have anything further to say. It is what it is.
So there you go.
Of course, by the time this comes out in about 3 or 4 days, we'll be that much closer to the election. And anyone looking back after the election at this video, hopefully they will find it very interesting still. And yeah, I totally appreciate you coming on the program and giving your time and all this information. And I think anyone watching it will appreciate it too. Thanks, guys. We'll have you again.
You're welcome.
Definitely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Thank you.